Hello everyone, my name is Lowko, and today it is time for a professional match of Terran versus Zerg. Spawning here in the southeast corner of the map and playing with the blue Terran SCVs. He's from South Korea and he goes by the name of Alive. And his opponent spawning in the opposite corner playing with the red Zerg drones. We are currently looking inside of the main base of the Swedish Zerg who goes by the name of SortOf. So, here's the thing. I was thinking about this for just a little while, and I've got the feeling that both of these players, while they are very well known, they've got one thing in common. And this is gonna sound a little mean, but I'll try and explain myself, okay? I've got the feeling that both SortOf and Alive are oftentimes overlooked. So, when you think of top-level European Zergs, right, you immediately think of names like, for example, Cyril, like Elazer, like Raynor, like Lambo, like Stefano. You think of all those names, but SortOf doesn't really come up very often. The same can really be said for Alive, right? If you talk about South Korean top-level Terran players, you think of names like, for example, Maru, Innovation, maybe even Björn, even though Björn did recently start up his military service. But you think of these Terran players and not really often of Alive. Yet both SortOf and Alive have been very, very solid in their results over the course of the last couple of years. Alive, for example, he has earned roughly $200,000 in prize money. He's been part of pretty much every single GSL Code S that I've ever seen. But yet his biggest tournament victory was back in 2012 with the IGN Pro League. And even though he does still play StarCraft, he's still a top-level Terran player. I've got a feeling that nobody really talks about him very often. The same can actually be said for SortOf. I have seen some seriously impressive macro games from SortOf ever since I first started watching StarCraft 2 myself, which was back in like 2010, 2011 or so. It's been a long time. And when you actually talk to any of the top-level European players as well, they all mention that SortOf is not to be underestimated. He's a very, very strong opponent, and yeah, I'm curious to see where this game is going to take us. I actually just quickly looked it up. Both of these players do play on the Korean ladder. If I'm not mistaken, SortOf actually currently lives in Korea. He has been practicing over there very, very regularly. But he is actually, both of them actually, are currently in the top 25 of the Korean ladder. So they're definitely top-level players, yet nobody really talks about them nearly as often as they deserve. So I figured, let's give them a bit of a stage right here as well, and let's hopefully spread the news that they are very solid. Here we go, though. First Reaper making his way across the map. It did get the worker kill right there, but it also got stuck. So, beautiful surrounder actually by SortOf. If he wouldn't have lost that one drone, that would have been the play of this game already. But even though one drone ended up going down there, I think that SortOf is going to be pretty happy with this early game here. Obviously, trapping that Reaper is always nice. I mean, not only do you get to shut down your opponent's scouting information, but you also get to have that small moral victory, right? Just trapping the Reaper like that, it feels really, really good. Now, by the way, I'm curious. Whenever I select games to go ahead and cast, I pretty much always select games that I personally think would be really exciting. So usually that's gonna be games that have a really long replay time, or it's like a best of 3 or a best of 5 series between players that I personally think are really, really awesome. But who is your current favorite pro gamer? I would love to cast more games of players that you guys want to see as well. So let me know down below in the comment section, what player would you like me to commentate more often? Now, I know that a lot of you would like to see more Cyril and more Maru games. Look, the thing is, it's hard to get my hands on those replays. They, generally speaking, don't release those tournament replays. But regardless, I will try my very best. Let me know down below in the comment section. Maybe there's someone in particular you like a lot. Well, hold that thought, actually, because the Hellions currently made their way across the map. Even though Alive did not scout the really quick third hatchery there, it did delay Zergling speed, and that means that Alive actually has a shot right now at moving into the natural and then also the main of the Zerg player. Link speed is done right now, 12 Zerglings just about to spawn, but 6 drones have already found their death over here, 7 right now in total. Very, very healthy amount, but it does look like these Hellions are not gonna be able to live to tell the tale here either. So that's actually a pretty cool little development in ZVT, right? So a lot of Zerg players lately have been purposefully delaying their Zergling speed in favor of a quicker third base. This has been going on for about the last half year or so, and Terran players initially didn't really know how to respond to it. Turns out if you just make a bunch of Hellions and just run them across the map, which is on paper the easiest build in the game, they're pretty scary and they can actually deal a pretty healthy amount of damage. Now, that's 8 worker kills here for our Terran. Obviously, you gotta keep in mind, though, that the 4 Hellions ended up dying, as well as that Reaper. So all things considered, this is definitely not game-ending damage by any stretch of the imagination. But it's a fun little development, because if you would have shown Zerg players going for a quick 3rd base before even starting up link speed a couple years ago, I think Zerg players would have proclaimed that they are insane, because what are you gonna do against the first 4 Hellions? Well, for the longest time, nobody was rushing across the map with 4 Hellions anymore. So I think that means that most Zerg players are gonna feel pretty comfortable getting that quick link speed here a little while after getting the 3rd base up as well. It's still quick enough as long as you get it out before the 6th and the 8th Hellion arrive, but most of the time, that's the thing, right? Most of the time, Terran players will wait before they get aggressive with Hellions until they have 6 to 8 or so of them done. Now, I gotta say, I like this response right here from SortOf a lot. He scouted after killing those Hellions that there is indeed a 3rd command center already coming up for Terran, and that is super quick. So instead, he has decided to delay his lair here for a really long time, to yeah, I think he's gonna go for a 4th base before lair. He went for a Baneling Nest right now, as well as double upgrades. So SortOf is purposefully delaying as many of those tech routes as he can take right now in favor of drones. So if you look right now at the worker count already, this is gonna finish up SortOf's saturation for, well, at least the early game right now. He's gonna go up to 66 drones here, and even though he ended up losing 8 workers early on, I feel like he's going to be, 9 workers, I guess, early on. He's going to feel pretty confident going into the mid-game right now, because he has been able to build up that economy that he likes so very much. So really greedy opener there by SortOf, but I think it's like calculated greed, right? He got himself that scouting information off, and he decided, okay, I could get aggressive right now and maybe try and punish the Terran's greed by trying to kill this game right now before the 3rd command center can really come into effect, or I could use this time that has just been created by the Terran player to just simply get myself that full saturation. Regardless, though, Alive is gonna follow this up with some drop play right now. The 3rd CC is already going up. He is transitioning right now towards a really beautiful layout inside of the main, right? I like seeing this. It's an aesthetically pleasing production cycle right here. The factory, though, it's gonna be built over at the 3rd base instead, but we do have that drop coming up right now, and I like this Liberator position a lot, actually. It forces these queens to move forward, and that immediately means that Alive manages to get the kill on, at the very least, some of them. Not a lot of damage done so far, though, really, by the Terran player. I've got a feeling that this Liberator is not gonna live for too much longer here either. But at the very least, Alive is putting on a little bit of pressure, and he's slowing down some of that Zerg droning. And that's really what you're trying to accomplish with this. I mean, ideally, obviously, you kill a mineral line worth, but at this level of play, it's just simply not gonna happen that often. We see Drilling Claws coming up right now for Alive, so it looks like he's gonna plan, or he's planning rather, to transition right now towards a heavy... Oh my god, that's a big deal! That's a big deal. He actually just sniped one of those Evo chambers. Huh. But he's likely gonna transition right now towards a lot of Marine Widowmine medevac play. So basically any unit that starts with the M, except for the word Widow, but Marine Mine, medevac, Marauder, any unit that starts with the M is right now go for Alive. Now, actually, sniping that Creep Tumor, or rather that Evo Chamber right there in the main was pretty solid. It does actually delay the upgrades here, but it wasn't like +2 was just about to finish here either, but it does hurt a little bit, right? It messes things up. It messes things up. Usually you group up those kind of upgrades. In this case, that's not gonna happen, and we'll have to see how long it takes right now before we see the +2 started up once again here for SortOf. One of the medevacs there ended up dying, though, and with it a bunch of Marines as well, but still, it's slowing down the Zerg advancement for just a little while. Well, this dropship, yeah. This group of dropships not gonna achieve that much. Okay, so this is kind of the game that I was hoping for, okay? So it looks like we are sitting back and we're waiting for both players right now to transition towards the late game. I mean, they both had several moments where they could have gone for a big aggressive push, but instead of playing really aggressively, both of them decided to play expansion focused instead. So Alive right now, adding on additional barracks. He's gonna get a ton of production here out of these structures that he's got. The 4th CC just finished up as well. That one is likely gonna have a planetary fortress on it as well. But I think both players are feeling pretty confident with the amount of economy that they've got right now, which means that they are gonna be able to focus on, for example, tech, like we see right here on SortOf side, a lot more. So there's a Spire coming up right here as well as a Hive. Likely gonna be that Brute Lord transition here, while he's just simply sitting back playing Hydra Ling Bane here really, really defensively. Zerglings making their way towards the 4th, even though that was unscouted. Looks like SortOf knows the exact timing at which that should finish up. Although this Terran army that's currently moving right here on the right-hand side seems to be mostly unspotted. And indeed, Alive is going to be able to put up some of those Widow Mines on these bridges. And I've got a feeling these bridges are going to be very, very scary to engage into if you are a Zerg player right now. Because there's a lot of tight chokes here. There's a lot of damage that a Terran can do. Still, though, those Widow Mines obviously dealing some friendly fire there as well. There's a Siege Tank in the back. This kind of looks like a StarCraft 1 map, right? With these bridges. I actually really like the look of it. But I think eventually this should be cleaned up pretty solidly here by SortOf. Still though, oh man, look at these Hydras bumping into each other. They're really not getting the value. But even though all of these fights are deflected, I do like that move there by Alive. Anyways, this kind of does feel like a StarCraft 1 map, right? So this game was part as the this was played as part of the TLMC, which is a Team Liquid map contest, where basically a lot of pro gamers will play games on maps that community members made, and oftentimes it determines what the next ladder map pool is going to look like. I actually recently casted a game as well between Zest and Impact on another one of those maps that was part of that tournament. If you're interested in watching that game, I'll go ahead and post a link to it down below in the description of this one. It's got some of the craziest Protoss micro I've ever seen. But I do like the layout of this map overall so far, right? It looks really solid. I love these bridges. That really does feel like a StarCraft 1 map to me. There's 3 of them right here in the center. Super cool. A lot of macro bases, though. So even though usually tight chokes mean it's going to be in favor of Terran and Protoss, since there's a lot of bases to take, Zerg players are likely going to feel pretty confident as well. I like this a lot. Anyways, nice little bit of aggression right there by SortOf, though. He manages to pick up all of those units with relative ease right now. And look at the amount of Corruptors being made. That's actually a lot more Corruptors than we normally expect at this point in the game. There's 3 Vipers already done. Oh, I think he actually just canceled some of those Corruptors as well. But 11 Corruptors is still a very, very healthy amount. Already though, on the side of Terran, we see that second starport coming up, and he's getting himself the advanced ballistics upgrade after getting the fusion core as well. That will allow him to get the Liberators with the extra ranged upgrade, and that's really the late game army that Terran players really, really like. Getting an army composition based around Liberators feels really good because you can kill pretty much everything. Once again though, these bio units are pushing through that choke. A lot of choke points over here, and it's going to be difficult for SortOf to get the engagement that he's looking for right now. Brute Lords are morphing in, and we do also see Infestors right now coming up here for our Zerg players, so we really are now transitioning towards a much later game here. I like this though. Look at that. There's a trap waiting here. Whoa, whoa, calm down, Abathur. He's not even playing with the Loco announcer? Oh my god, missed opportunity. Anyways, we do see a lot of those units, rather than going for this round actually, which is what I expected, they go for the counter attack instead. A lot of Zerglings making their way towards the natural. Hydras right now joining the fray as well. With these Banelings joining too, that's going to be a very tough amount of damage to deal with right now for our Terran player. At the same time though, we do see this push right here through the center of the map. That's a lot of Terran bio still, but the Brute Lords, they're just simply throwing away as many of their little Brutelings as they can, and that's going to be a difficult amount of damage, in particular when you are also hurting your own unit with those Widow Mines. That's the downside, obviously, at this point in the game. Beautiful parasitic bomb right there, actually, on those Medivacs. Great splits as well by Alive. He's going to be able to keep at least some of them alive, but that was a very, very easy pushback there by SortOf, and he is going to be able to reign supreme so far here with these GG Lords. Does anyone remember when they called them GG Lords? There used to be days where if Terran players and Protoss players alike saw Brute Lords, they just GG'd. Nobody really knew how to play late game for the first 5 years of StarCraft. And then we figured out, hey, wait a second. What if you just start making units in time no matter what? Brilliant. Took a long time before people realized that, though. It's kind of funny when you think about it, though. The strategies certainly have come a very, very long way ever since. Anyways, we see a Ghost Academy right now here for Alive. So it looks like after going for the bio army right now, he's gonna transition towards more biological units in the form of course, those ghosts. Now, ghosts, they are good for several things. They're really the ultimate late-game Terran unit when you think about it, right? So they are great against spellcasters because they have EMP. They can remove energy out of casters in StarCraft 2. On top of that, they obviously also have Snipe, which is great against Ultralisks as well as Brute Lords. So if you want to counter Ultralisks, Brute Lords, Vipers, and Infestors, usually Ghosts are going to be a great way to do exactly that. However, Ghost, obviously, they are very, very vulnerable when they get fungaled or when there's a bunch of Ling Bane trying to get this around. So it's a pretty interesting dynamic between Ghosts and then late-game Zerg armies, because mid-game Zerg armies counter Ghosts. Regardless, big amount of bio units once again moving right here on the left-hand side. We see the same happening right now on the right. Looks like Alive is trying to abuse the speed at which this Brute Lord army can move. So right while this base is being picked off right here, SortOf is going to lose that hatchery for sure. He's likely going to lose a little bit more right here on the other side as well, as all of his army is currently preoccupied trying to deal with the force that's coming right here from the bottom. Great fungal growth there though, but it's not going to be enough. Hatchery does end up falling, and SortOf is indeed losing 2 hatcheries here in just a matter of seconds. That's gonna hurt quite a bit. Even though Alive was really far behind here supply-wise just a little bit ago, he's certainly in a very healthy position right now. He's got a lot of mining bases, setting up planetaries, pretty much everything. This base feels vulnerable though, right? We're on Ephemeron, I don't know how to pronounce that. But yeah, that base, there's no way, right? Is that base really going to finish? I mean, at this point, it's still unscouted. I would imagine this base in the bottom left is a much safer position. Yeah, there you go. He is indeed now sending an SCV over to watch that area. But these are going to be the points of tension right here. Both players are mining a stupid amount of resources. They're going to be able to remax very easily. However, eventually, their bases are going to run low. And it all comes down to cost-efficient trades. And when it comes to cost-efficient trades, if there's one thing very, very good at that, it is going to be Brute Lords and Infestors. They're very, very good at exactly that. We see a lot of Ghosts, though, coming up here. Alive already has quite a few of them out. 4 of them at this point. He's going to be able to transition towards more and more. And look at the Liberator count right now as well. I love this. Incredibly good zoning here by Alive. Setting up those Liberation zones while simultaneously sniping a base there with the bio units. Getting rid of some of that creep. Wonderful move here. At the same time, SortOf is now also moving right here with Lings and Banes. They're not going to be nearly as useful anymore, but with this amount of upgrades, they can certainly get rid of a planetary fortress in just a couple of seconds. We do see some nice fungal growths here coming up as well, and it looks like Alive's army here will be shut down. But at the same time, a planetary fortress was also killed. So this is still certainly anyone's game. A lot of damage, though, was done here. You can see Alive losing quite a lot of that supply really, really rapidly. I like this addition right here of the Spore Crawlers, right? Rather than trying to play against the game and the map, SortOf has decided, okay, if there's going to be a lot of tight chokes, and I know I'm going to have a hard time dealing with that, what if I just set up a couple Spore Crawlers here where Medevacs will likely be in trouble and where Liberators might try and siege up? Really like that. Ooh. Big hit right there on the Overseer, but the Queen's immediately ready with the Transfuse. I feel like this base needs to be spotted, though. Oh, he knows about it right now. I kind of feel like he needs to jump on the opportunity. Liberators, once again, moving pretty much everywhere, although there's Liberator anti-structures set up pretty much everywhere as well. Tons of Spore Crawlers at every location, and I think that should be a relatively easy cleanup right now for just a single Queen. Look at these sophisticated army compositions right now, though, for both players, right? Heavy Liberators with tons of Ghosts right here as well. SortOf pretending to have Marines of his own. He's going to figure out exactly where that army is located. But, yeah, oh man, this could be either player's game for sure. This almost kind of feels like a late game Protoss versus Zerg right now, right? Where usually it's going to be the Zerg players that get a ton of static defense set up. I like the fact that SortOf is actually putting up a lot of these Spore Crawlers. Now he's pushing the creep and he's pushing the Spores forward as well. And that is how he decides to zone. So he's getting his own Liberators in a way. Right, the Liberators just zoned over here to snipe the base in the top or right-hand corner. Right now, it is the Spore Crawlers buying time for the rest of the Zerg army to potentially pick up that base as well. Gotta be careful, though. If you move forward like this as SortOf, it means that your army on the left-hand side is gonna be very, very vulnerable as well. If there would be an aggressive push right now for Terran, it could certainly happen on the left-hand side. We also do see, once again, 2 dropships, though, flying over the planetary fortress that just ended up dying. They're going to try and see if they can pick up a hatchery right over here as well. The Marauders in the front are going to be able to tank some of those Zerglings and Banelings, but eventually, I've got a feeling, yep, that all of that will be shut down as well. Here's the Ghost, though. And it's actually, oh my god. There's 5 nukes currently on the production tab. 5 nukes currently on the production tab. And look at the damage output right here of these Ghosts as well. You gotta be careful, though. You don't want to have them all just by themselves. Simulation successful, as indeed a neural parasite was just used on a Ghost, and that one in turn used EMP right there on the rest of the Ghosts. I like these Fungals a lot. That is a very expensive mistake there from Alive, losing so much. I mean, sure, he does get some EMPs off right there, and that will kill the energy of some of those Infestors, but the Infestors live, whereas most of those Ghosts ended up dying. That was a beautiful move there by SortOf. He saw an opportunity, and he jumped on it as well. Now, I just want to emphasize for a little bit, okay? The skill required to micro and control these Zerg units. So there's clearly a control group right here with a couple of Overseers, as well as a couple Corruptors, as well as a few of those Vipers. That alone is already pretty difficult to control. Then there's obviously a control group right here for a lot of Brute Lords, as well as I think a couple more Overseers. Then there's another control group right here for Infestors, and then we have Lings, Banes, Queens, and everything else hotkeyed as well. I wonder exactly how he's controlling this right now. I know a lot of the high-level Zerg players at this point just simply stop hotkeying these kind of units. They just stop hotkeying Lings and Banes. Don't know if that's necessarily the best way to go about it, but the thing is, you run out of space on your keyboard, right? I know there's actually some Zerg players and pro gamers in general as well that pick up additional keyboard hotkeys on just regular letters and whatnot. So rather than using numbers, I know there's some that I think they use the hotkey Q as like a control group. So they rebind control group number 0 or 9 or whatever, one that's pretty much impossible to reach, and they rebind that to Q to essentially open up additional hotkeys in the late game to control armies like this. It's very difficult to do so. Now, likewise, obviously, we see a very similar setup right here for Alive. He's got a ton of those Liberators that need to all be separately hotkeyed. He's got a lot of Ghosts that certainly need to be hotkeyed as well. They need to be babysit really nicely. And then he's got several clumps of Marines and Marauders sitting pretty much everywhere. And right now, he's adding to that mix a Ghost Raven army, which is super difficult to control. Like, for both players, this is not an easy situation to be in right now. Regardless, it looks like finally SortOf is feeling brave enough to move forward. He's got that creep in a really good position. That means the Queens, as well as those Spores, can start closing the distance. It all comes down to the control right now. Unit control is the name of the game. One mistake, like for example that, oh my god, that is so much damage there. After losing all of those Ghosts, now Alive looks like he's gonna lose all of those Vikings as well. And while that's going on, the Planetary fell in just a couple seconds. SortOf looking solid here in the late game, man. I gotta be honest with you. The control here has been top-notch from him. Very, very impressive. I wonder what would happen if you were to... I've been wondering this for a while. What if you were to cover the names of players that we are seeing right here? Here's a nuke, by the way, coming up, so that one is certainly going to be able to deal some damage. The Ghost actually right over there. Well, I was going to say it certainly should deal some damage. It's a weird spot to be in. And is it going to... Oh, yep, it will land. It will land. The Zerg army actually, rather than killing the Ghost, decided to just simply run, rather, but wasn't that much damage there in the end. But here's the thing. What if I were to, like, cover up the names right now of the players that you would see play? Right? So you wouldn't know that it's SortOf and you wouldn't know that it's Alive. Who would you guess was playing right now? Because seriously, when you think of super good late-game Zerg players, I would say it's primarily Dark, Rogue, and Serral. Like, they are but this is looking exactly at the similar skill level, right? There haven't really been any critical errors here from SortOf. He's mining every single possible base that he's got right here, getting himself a stupid amount of resources. Both players are slowly starting to push forward because they're trying to deny their opponent the outer bases, but they're trying to do so while still trading really cost efficiently. And usually energy-based units, obviously, are going to be the name of the game. I mean, honestly, if you would have covered the names right here, I probably would have guessed like a Rogue or a Serral or a Dark. Seriously. This looks a lot like a Serral play. Alive though, managed to get the kill right here on the base in the top right-hand corner, and while he did get that, one killed, the bases in the bottom left here did end up falling. Still though, the Marines and Marauders, they need to be replaced with something better here eventually, but while, yeah, this is certainly still gonna be able to deal some damage. Ugh, how are you gonna break this right now? The creep is still pushing forward. And yeah, eventually, even though SortOf certainly did still have a big army, and even though Alive certainly did still have a lot of mining bases, you realize here very quickly that Alive was up with his back against the wall. SortOf had like, I don't know, like 7 or so mining bases right there near the end, whereas Alive, you can see he didn't have a bank anymore either. SortOf still sitting with 5.5k minerals and close to 5.5k gas as well. Good luck trying to trade it cost efficiently with that. And that already comes down to 2 critical errors there that I got to see on camera. There may have been some more that were happening simultaneously, but obviously right there, the neural parasite on one of the ghosts and then hitting EMP on the rest of the ghosts, hitting fungals and picking pretty much all of them up for free. That was a very, very expensive trade. Ghosts, by no stretch of the imagination, are really cheap units. And then obviously we saw Alive infesting into Ghosts very heavily because he got so many of those nukes that didn't really get used that often there in the end. And then secondly, obviously, we also had that big parasitic bomb on all of those Vikings that were essentially meant to push back that Broodlord army. That was sick. Really good game there by both players actually, but I'm particularly impressed right here by SortOf. So hey, if there's anything you take away from this game, remember the name. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. A special shout out to the Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for your generosity. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I will see you once again in the next one.